Right, let's get into some of this conversation. There's a bit about Sea Lux tonight, and there's also a bit about Chippy as well. Let's start with Sea Lux. This has got several short clips we're going to kind of put back to back to back. This is Sea Lux this morning on breakfast. That's who that is, in case you're not aware. Making it clear that he is aware that he's not popular with everyone.
Yeah, Prime Minister, sounds like a lot of hard work that your coalition government is putting in, but the rewards don't seem to be shown on this poll, based on this poll, with 25% you as preferred Prime Minister. Why do you think that is?
Oh, look, I just want to acknowledge it has been a tough time, and we've had to make some tough choices as we've dealt with the mess that we've inherited.
No, but just bringing you back to that point, the mess that they've inherited, there's a theme through this little bit of the show.
That means that we won't be popular with everybody. I get that. But actually, I've got to make the right decisions for the long term. I've got to make the right decisions that set New Zealand up for a great future, which I honestly believe that we can have. And obviously, voters will make their decision around that in 2026. And I'm confident by then they'll see that our plan is working. And as I said before, I think you're starting to see some early signs and encouraging signs that that is the case.
So, not popular with everyone. He's conceding that. And also the mess that they've got to clean up. Here's the first question. I put this out on Twitter today. Luxon said on breakfast, we won't be popular with everybody. And unfortunately, Daniel Faitaua missed an opportunity for the obvious question. So who do you think you are popular with, Prime Minister? And I've started with big tobacco, big petroleum and landlords. Anyone else? And then we went through a few people, made some examples. The people who donated $500,000 to be shortlisted for fast-track approvals, fisheries, trucking, overseas corporations, mining companies, commercial trawlers, gun dealers, etc., 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 etc. And look, I don't want to, I quite like Daniel. I quite like his style, but I do feel like for all politicians, a bit of pushback sometimes. It seems like they can't go off script, Chewy, at TVNZ. And obviously, you don't, that question doesn't come to you until his answer comes to you, so it's got to be a bit more kind of natural and stuff. But it just made me feel, okay, he's not popular with everyone, fine. But who is he most popular with? Landlords, top 1%, big tobacco, certainly not the EV world, people who are selling non-EV cars. Thoughts, sir?
Yeah, what a nonsense comment. I'm not popular with it. Nobody is.
No.
Nobody is popular with everyone. It's a silly throwaway line. But there's like one of the things that he said on election night was that he was going to lead a government for everyone. And that is clearly a falsehood that I wish he would get pulled up on more. Yes, it's campaign rhetoric, whatever, but words mean something.
Yeah.
He's led a government that has gone for a segment of our population, like a wholesale. He's called people bottom feeders. He's refused to engage with gangs and just gone on a tier that literally breaches human rights. He's been slow or non-existent in a whole bunch of stuff, and he spent an enormous amount of money on stuff that shouldn't have had that money spent on.
Yeah.
Like this is why he's an unlikable guy, and to coin a phrase, he's not very good at this.
Yeah, I heard that.
He's not a good leader.
Yeah,
he's not a good politician.
Yeah, and
why is he there? We're
going to get to that because people were polled today as part of One News's polling and came out saying that he's they don't think you're very relatable, Mr. Luxon. Yeah, no shit. The guy who says, I'm rich, I'm sorted. But there's another part of that. The whole blaming Labour thing. Now, they do it all the time, right? And sometimes they can slip it past and get away with it, but they're getting the word emboldened, right? The word emboldened. They're getting bolder and bolder and bolder on this. Have a listen to this. That's this thanks to Spiderhoof. She let me know about it from the House today.
Why wasn't he aware that his government had declined funding for a longer-term strategy to deal with the flood risks in South Dunedin?
Okay, so to remind people, last year, the DCC, Dunedin City Council, asked the government for budget to buy out some of the houses in the worst potential flooding area. Some of those houses got flooded again a couple of weekends ago. And when Mark Mitchell and Christopher Luxon were asked why they declined it, neither of them knew what the reporter was talking about. So that's what Hipkins is talking. He's saying, why did you guys decline that request?
To deal with the flood risks in South Dunedin. Was he not properly briefed before his visit, or does he just not care?
I'll just remind that member that it was his government that declined the proposal that was sent forward by the District Council. Well,
That's not true.
Now I know.
So I'm going to turn that down for the music. So Luxon today didn't just say, oh, we've inherited a mess. He said, in June of this year, your government declined that request. Like not even, oh, there's Spider Hoof with a a screen grab that's dated 25th of June 2024. Government turns down city bid for climate cash. And Luxon stands up and is so comfortable in his life of lies, his tower of bullshit, that he says that under Hipkins they turned it down when it didn't get turned down until the middle of this year, just before the floods. So this whole chewy, what we inherited is one thing, but now he's either an absolute moron who doesn't know what's going on, and he got given an opportunity 2 weekends ago to know by today, or he's just so, to use that word again, emboldened to lie, that he'll just lie because he knows that the media won't check him. No, New Zealanders on his side will believe him, and he'll move on to something else tomorrow.
Yeah. Do you remember when we had a prime minister that was just always across things?
Yeah.
Like there was almost no passing off.
Yeah.
To other people unless they actually did have an answer. This is a shambles, an absolute shambles. And what issue this is going to create for the people of South Dunedin, right, is after the insurance companies have gone through and fixed up everything that got damaged this time, they cancel people's policies and say, that's the last one. We're not going to do it again.
Yep.
And the people that live in South Dunedin are poor, elderly. They're not going to have any other options. They're not going to be able to sell up because the house is uninsurable now and move somewhere else.
And guess what? This government has emptied the storehouse. With tax cuts and landlord reimbursements, this government has emptied the storehouse, which would normally have a bunch of money in it for things like climate issues, massive weather events. They've emptied it. So now what? What are these guys going to do now that they've opened their wallet, they've turned it upside down, our wallet, sorry, Chewy. They've turned it upside down. They've got a bit more money from the bank and they've given it out as tax cuts where people get $3 a week or to landlords who will get thousands and thousands of dollars a year.
That was one of the first things that they cancelled. Remember there was the Climate Emergency Fund that was sitting there for climate emergency related disasters?
Yeah.
No, it's got to go to landlords. We need the money for the landlords. We're still going to borrow $14 billion, but we also need this fund that has been squirreled away for the nationwide equivalent of your roof springing a leak. And now we need a new roof.
Just never forget, people. Nicola, I've got an English degree, Willis, Nikki No Boats. Oh God, I can't not smile when I say that. Nikki No Boats, right? She has borrowed more in this budget than Grant Robinson did in 5 out of the 6 budgets. And the only one he borrowed more in was the height of COVID. What have they borrowed for this time? Tax cuts and landlord reimbursements.
It's crazy.
She has borrowed more in this budget than Grant Robertson did in all of his budget, bar the worst year of COVID. Think about it. Just let that sink in.
She borrowed money to transfer directly to the landowning class, and the rest of us get the bright idea of austerity.
Yeah.
Like, it's mental. It is mental. It is like, I get why he's not in Parliament, but by God, I wish he was there just to constantly read her the fucking phone book of how she's just so outclassed at this. another thought that I had.
Yep.
Okay, we got no votes for now, right?
I can't not laugh. I can't not laugh. It's perfect. I got
in
to
a
find out
couple
who
of
put
years-
that in the chat. Whoever put that in the chat, we got to find out who you are.
In a couple of years, there's going to be an election, and I would hope that she's Nikki no votes.
Ah, look at you, eh?
Look at that. Now this has got some legs, people.
Right, let's move on to it's a different story, but it kind of travels off it quite nicely, which is TVNZ did their polling obviously over the last few weeks, and they're releasing a bunch of results this week. What they released tonight was are our politicians out of touch? And there's been some things said about Mr. Luxon. Let's have a listen.
Many New Zealanders feel the Prime Minister isn't relating to them, with our One News Verian poll showing the leaders of both main parties slipping in
Actually,
popularity.
just saying that, I was just thinking when I was hearing him talk a second ago, and look, this is going to sound really naive, like I've never thought of this before, but sometimes you kind of get a, oh man, moment. How does someone, and let's forget Luxon, whoever it is, because all these politicians are worth stacks more than most New Zealanders, right? How does someone worth millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars, when he said, I think New Zealand could be a great little economy, I just think for the first time ever I went, but for who? How can you, Mr. I'm rich, I'm all right, I'm taken care of, I'm sorted, how can you want the same economy as a solo mum in South Dunedin or South Auckland or rural New Zealand? Won't those things be different? How will it be good for a 50 millionaire and also good for a beneficiary, vulnerable person, a person on the minimum wage? I don't know if you can have it good for both parties, Chewy. So
No.
I'm just like, how do you do it? How do you make it? And like, I guess the answer to that from me is actually trickle up economics. Because if you know, society's only as strong as its weakest link, a chain's only as strong as its weakest link. If the weakest link is okay, then it will trickle up. The ones at the bottom will spend and will look after themselves better. But yeah, I don't think we're ever going to see that. Sorry, I interrupted it so quickly. Do you want to say something?
It's an interesting question. And I think like anyone in politics, like this is one of the things you have to be able to relate to and be relatable to people who don't share your life story or your background or that sort of thing. I think when it comes to Luxon, he spent so much time outside of the country. His kids haven't even experienced big chunks of their education here in New Zealand.
Yeah.
Even down to his religious background. It bucks the trend for most New Zealanders. So
Yeah.
how do you relate to people? A good politician or a good leader can find a way. And I think there's a thing when someone says that they understand, I think instantly you can pick it. You know, and I haven't seen that from Luxon. I don't think he understands it either. Like, and it's right from his entry into politics. Remember when he took that limo across the road?
Yeah.
You know, his ongoing, it's his lack of character. Like every time there's an incentive on the table, he will stick his hand out for it.
Yeah.
You know, he does, like I said, he doesn't see the political capital in it. He just sees the actual dollar value on it. And for a politician to just like to, it happened in his brain and it traveled all the way down to his mouth hole. He said on TV, I'm wealthy and I'm sorted, and thought that phrase would not just ping pong around people's head for months and months and months. People will remember this. This is why you're not relatable.
Yeah. Well, let's get into that research. I just thought, as well as you were talking about his religious background, I just thought of another T-shirt. Jesus was a socialist. How about that? That would be quite a good T-shirt as well.
A brown one at that from Palestine.
Here we go.
We can now exclusively reveal that a majority
Jesus was a Palestinian socialist. Better? Better.
of Kiwis think there's a disconnect between Christopher Luxon and voters. 51% of those polled saying he's out of touch, while 37% disagree and 12% don't know or prefer.
It's interesting that this is basically what they're polling at the moment. High 30s.
37% think he's in touch.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
I had a tweet, not battle with someone today, but I asked that question about and someone said, oh, the majority of New Zealand who voted for them. And I went, well, I know I'm being pedantic, but the only person that can claim the majority of New Zealand had voted for them was Jacinda Ardern, because she's the only person to have a majority government under MMP. So what you're actually saying is the people who voted for him, I get it. And they went, oh, but hang on, what about the ones in Dunedin who voted for him who didn't get their hospital? Hang on, what about the ones in Tararua who voted for him and they're being forced to pay for a road twice? What about those doctors who voted for him who are now not getting rid of smoke-free? What about those rural people who voted for him or having their buses taken away? So maybe it's not all the people who voted for him are the ones who are now think he's in touch and are happy with what he's doing. Just throwing it out there. Keep going, eh?
Not to say. Here's political editor Mikey Sherman with reaction.
Christopher Luxon works hard to connect with voters, searching out every high five he can get.
What a great way to start the day.
But despite flooding social media,
Tax relief is here.
And using every tool in the bag,
I might do this in a post.
Speaking of tools.
Prime Ministership, you never know.
not everyone is loving Luxon.
Prime Minister, are you in touch or out of touch with voters?
Look, in touch. I mean, I'm out and about across New Zealand, meeting people from all walks of life.
In our latest
don't get
poll,
to
more
say
than
that,
half
though.
of all voters disagree, saying Christopher Luxon is out of touch.
Dunedin Airport, for people if you're wondering.
It seems that he's running the country as a business as opposed to a country with real human beings.
The former business high flyer recently admitted he's, quote, wealthy and sorted, while previously claiming a taxpayer accommodation allowance.
It's an entitlement, and I'm well within the rules.
And selling several houses in just the last few months.
Always buying and selling houses isn't a very good look for a politician.
This is a pretty heavy article from TVNZ on how disliked he is.
Particularly as everybody's sort of scrimping along the way at the moment.
He's sitting up top with a nice bank balance and just isn't really aware of day-to-day kind of struggles.
There's also the coalition challenge.
It does feel like the tail's wagging the dog with Seymour, particularly, and with Peters to some extent.
Our poll shows even 72% of New Zealand First voters think Luxon isn't gelling.
If you're a new Prime Minister and your honeymoon lasts 1 second, then I kind of think he hasn't been given a fair go.
I actually think half of what he said there he believes. What he said was, if your honeymoon lasts 1 second, the truthful answer is you can't be a very good groom. But it's almost like Winston just stopped for a second. He realised if your honeymoon only lasts 1 second, oh, hang on, I'm in coalition with them. I got to say that it's the voters' fault. But it's actually, if your honeymoon only lasts 1 second, you are a shit groom. You probably shouldn't have married that person if it only lasts 1 second. So listen to Winston again when he says it.
First voters think Luxon isn't gelling.
If you're a new Prime Minister and your honeymoon lasts 1 second,
Pause.
then I kind of think he hasn't been given a fair go.
As I said, I've come to Parliament as a successful former business person. I think that's good that you can have people from all walks of life across New Zealand actually coming to this place and being able to make a contribution.
Well, I mean, ultimately, Christopher Luxon himself has said that he doesn't care what New Zealanders think about the actions that his government are taking.
Labor today, absolutely brutal.
Time and again he said, I'm entitled. In fact, he said he's entitled to his entitlement. What does that say?
Well, you can't go around and say I'm wealthy and I'm sorted and think that's a great thing.
He's one of those people that when, at primary school, when I grow up, I want to be Prime Minister, and that's kind of the depth of the man that he is.
National backing their leader.
Yeah, I mean, everybody has their own background and he's doing a good job.
Absolutely in touch. He's a fantastic leader and he's doing great things for this country.
Many, though, still need convincing.
How disappointing. There you go. There is part one, Chewy. This goes on this story to talk about Chippy's leadership, but we'll look at that next. Thoughts?
Oh, yeah. Like, I think my only thought from what he said there is, again, his myth of being a successful businessman.
Yeah, what's the metric for successful?
Leader.
Yeah.
Like the thing with him being, successful former CEO of Air New Zealand, I haven't really ever seen anyone dig into that.
Yeah.
Like, how popular was he as a leader? Did he deliver success to Air New Zealand? Or did he deliver misery for his workers and a big fat dividend for the board and investors? Like, this is the difference. He's come from a big international company. He's almost, as soon as he was at Air New Zealand, people would mention that he was a potential former prime minister. And I never really saw a reason why. So Yeah, it's these myths that have built up this kind of cult of personality that he's trying to build, and at least as far as I can see it, is wildly ineffectual, even compared to someone like John Key. Like I didn't see it, but a lot of people consider John Key to be very relatable. With almost the same sort of background, that wealthy fucking investment banker. I don't know why anybody would see that as relatable, but people did see that in Key. And then the things about Jacinda that made her relatable, they weaponized. It's just bizarre. And I don't think you can put your finger on it and go, well, this is what makes someone relatable. You either are or you aren't. And I just haven't ever seen it in Luxon.